follow the shuttle.
May I land us, or do I have to go through a bouncer?
Just give me the vectors.
Vectors displayed. Please, try not to jar my chips.
Michael, someone's calling into this computer.
Calling in from the outside.
Yes, via the telephone. It's another computer.
Kid, that's gotta be Randy. Can you trace the call?
It's coming from a mobile phone.
Good day and welcome to Knighttlestar Rideactica. Each week on Knighttlestar Rideactica, we celebrate the work of sci-fi visionary Glenn A. Larson. We pair an episode of his 70s masterpiece series Battlestar Galactica with an episode of his 80s masterpiece Knight Rider, and see what they have to say to each other. I'm Carl, and please welcome our guests.
Hi Carl, I'm Caitlin.
Hi Carl, this is Chris.
Hi Carl, I'm Julia.
Welcome to the show. This is episode 5 of Knighttlestar Rideactica. We've had an exciting journey. We've gotten the chance to talk to a lot of guests who've worked on these shows, both on camera and off camera. But unfortunately, I found out that in every case, I had plugged the microphone into the wrong thing and the audio was not usable. But I'm pretty sure I got this one, so let's get going. Today's episodes are Battlestar Galactica's The Long Patrol and Knight Rider's Soul Survivor, and the theme is stealing talking vehicles. In The Long Patrol, Starbuck is testing the new Long Recon Viper and its artificial intelligence, Cora. A robber named Robber steals the Viper, leaving Starbuck captive on a prison planet. It's actually a pretty friendly place where prisoners make and drink ambrosia all the time, and everyone's name is the crime that their grandparents were imprisoned for long ago. Starbuck breaks them out anyway, just in time to be rescued by Apollo and Boomer. But then, it's a Cylon attack. Starbuck and Cora trick the Cylons into crashing, and all the humans celebrate and bond on the rising star over tales of a legendary planet called Earth. What did you think of The Long Patrol?
I really wish the whole episode had been about this mad society of descendants of prisoners and guards, because that is such a wonderfully wacky idea. Like, when Starbuck realizes his door isn't even locked and they all just stay in on the honor system, you're just like, I'm sorry, what? and it's just like, why wasn't this the whole thing? Like, this seems like...
Chris, there are already plenty of shows about Australia.
It's funny, if this had been a modern reboot, after the recent semi-modern reboot, this totally would have had some message about generational trauma, inflicted on people by the carceral system and all that stuff. But no, they made booze. That was cool.
Yeah, and T'Pring was there.
T'Pring as Adulteress 58.
Yeah.
Oh,
exciting.
I hadn't noticed that.
I don't...
Do you think that was on purpose?
Nah. She was just, she's one of those people. She was just in everything in those days. She was in Trek. She was in a Columbo once,
And Julia, by the way, thank you for telling our viewers that there was actually a reboot of Battlestar Galactica a few years ago, but nobody watched it. It wasn't very popular. But it was by Ronald B. Moore or something. The thing about Battlestar is, this is actually pretty good satire, but I can't tell if Battlestar means it as satire. Do you know what I mean?
So, this episode, who is this show for? On the one hand, you have the boy and his monkey dog, which makes it feel like this is for children.
Which Chris looked up, and that's an actual chimpanzee in that suit, which I find absolutely fucking horrific.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that would violate many animal rights laws these days.
All of the laws these days.
But yeah, so you've got the boy and the monkey dog, which makes you think this is a show for kids.
Yes.
But then, you go to the prison planet with Adulteress 59, where they make booze all day,
you've got Starbuck, basically doing the sitcom 2 dates at the same time thing with 2 different women, because all kids love that.
Yeah, like instead of most of the episode being science fiction, it's Starbuck the man whore. So it's just like, who was this for? Children, adults, teenagers,
The whole
like
family.
Bear dogs.
There's something there for everybody.
This is the biggest question, I think, related to Battlestar, because it should, certain parts of it should be better than it is.
yeah,
And I think we can look for clues in what the network censors put on them. This show ran Sundays at 7 p.m., which was considered the family hour at the time.
yeah.
And they were allowed 6 violent acts per episode.
Wow.
You know, everyone knows Glenn A. Larson is a sci-fi genius. But by absolute coincidence, the more he pitched and developed this show, the more it started to look like Star Wars. And the more the network tried to make it look like Star Wars.
Yeah.
When he went into production on this, he pitched this as 3 TV movies that were kind of supposed to be Star Wars-like. But in the middle of production, the network said, screw your TV movies, we want a weekly series. A lot of what you're talking about, the questions about tone, are probably because of that. The adulterous 58 thing is the most interesting to me, because the other thing is this show feels so religious. And yet, if you were super religious and studied the Bible, at a certain point you would come to the part where it says, like, be nice to sex workers, be nice to women of the evening. There's a character named Cassiopeia in this whose profession was socialator, which it was a euphemism for sex worker. And she's just a character on the show. So it's rough in kind of an interesting way, but it's extremely sanitized and pure in every other way. I don't know.
Except for Starbucks and his man whoring.
Ah, yes, the Starbucks. What did you think of Dirk Benedict?
You know, he feels like a hangover from 60s adventure shows. Like, he'd have fit right in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. or Wild Wild West or, 60s Trek maybe. But he feels out of place here. And maybe it's not even the era, it's just maybe the kind of show. Like, I don't know if they want him to be Han or Luke, and they don't know either. And maybe there's supposed to be some, like, Captain Kirk in there. I don't know. He was so thoroughly unlikable, though. My dearest hope was that Cassiopeia and the brunette, whose name I didn't catch.
That is Athena, Apollo's sister.
Thank you. Really? So...
Big surprise, huh?
I was really, like... I was like, can they just both leave Starbuck for each other? They seem like they'd have a healthier relationship.
Now you're cooking.
The family dynamics in this were something that I mean, having seen the one episode, feels like should get more attention. Like the head guy, the Lauren Green character, Adama, is like the dad of a few of these people, and they're also in like, this is like Nepo Baby City.
Apollo is the Nepoist, absolutely. We were talking about the nature of Starbuck.
Yeah, literally every other character was more interesting than him.
Yeah.
I would dispute that Apollo was more interesting than him.
I don't know, I kind of liked Apollo.
Felt like human drywall to me.
Let me rephrase that.
Muffet had more characters for me than Apollo did.
Let me rephrase that. I liked every character more than him because Starbuck was just pure sleaze.
I feel like he felt like he was a much younger character than his actor, which I know like happens all the time. But I feel like he looked like he was in his 40s, but he was supposed to be like, this young, hot pilot character. And I was kind of like, I don't buy it. But you were
This is
saying...
the 70s where like, you could be in your 30s and look like you were in your 50s or vice versa, depending on, how much smoking you'd done or what have you.
Yeah, I saw this video once. It was news footage of high school seniors in the 1980s. And so these weren't actors. These were actual 18-year-olds, basically, 17, 18-year-olds. Like, wow, we're really unfair to Greece when we say how too old the actors... I mean, they still look too old, but not by as much as we think. As Julia said, like, we're kind of one of the first sort of cohorts where not everyone has been smoking since they were 13.
That's
so
true.
We're aging a little better as well.
Yeah, the lead, taking the lead out of the gasoline and all that.
Our parents slathered
Right.
us in sunscreen.
They're slightly healthier.
In skin regards, not in others.
Yeah.
But we're also probably fed a pretty healthy diet of McDonald's as children, so perhaps
Yeah.
we're also well preserved.
Yeah.
70% corn syrup by volume.
Yeah. Corn syrup Aractica. Now, of course,
Corn syrup
Starbuck.
diabetica. Sorry.
Yes. Now, of course, Starbuck and women is a major theme of this episode. What did you think of old Cora?
The fact that she starts immediately by flirting with him is so weird.
Yeah.
Like, not even a, enter your username and password or anything. Just like, hey, baby.
Hey, stud.
Well, it's like...
I like it when you stroke my joystick.
oh. Caitlin,
You feel so good inside me, Starbuck.
Also, I love. I think I mentioned this to Carl earlier. I love that they make such a big deal about the Recon Viper having 0 weapons, except that they clearly didn't bother to take the fire button off of the joystick. So, I wonder what that did. Is that like a cigarette lighter? Or...
Literal fire.
Well, they also apparently took the locks out of the spaceship. I guess the locks were too heavy, too.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen an example of, like, the horny computer gag that works?
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, I feel like they did it on an episode of Star Trek, and it was kind of annoying.
See, I kind of thought it was.
You like that? Okay.
Well, okay. I'm not saying I like it. I feel
Yeah.
like it was. I was actually just saying as we were watching this that when they did it in Star Trek, it was kind of a misfire because they're like, oh yeah, now the computer is really horny for us because it's from like a matriarchal planet, and I was like, yeah, but if it was a matriarchal planet, they wouldn't do that. Okay,
Right.
Actually,
but I still thought it was cute.
I thought
just
of
didn't think it was good.
I thought of a
it
way...
was cute, dear.
Dear,
I thought of a
okay,
way...
honey.
I'm sure this is not what the writers were thinking, because they were all men in the 60s. But a way it could be a matriarchal society and still have that make sense is they're doing it just to make a chauvinist like Kirk uncomfortable.
Sure.
Well, the joke's on them. He probably loved it.
No, he was very uncomfortable. He did not like it.
In the trousers region.
Yeah, I couldn't believe because this thing is supposed to be like a military vessel.
Right.
They make a big deal of, it'll outfly anything in the galaxy or the universe or whatever, which feels like a high bar. But leaving that aside, because who you want as your co-pilot when you're under fire trying to escape from Cylons?
Jesus.
You want a computer that'll talk to you all slow and sexy, honey. Like a southern
Don't
waitress
jar
who
my
really
chips.
wants a big tip.
Now, see, if she was a surly southern waitress, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
You dumb motherfucker. You gotta hit them scram jets and... I
Actually, that would have been perfect. That's exactly the type of show Dirk Benedict would have wanted to be cast in. I think. The other problem for me is I don't think they know exactly what flirting is.
No, God, no.
Because she doesn't really... Like, what you did was more flirtatious than, like...
Yeah.
And it may be part of Battlestar's religiousness that they know enough about what flirting is to get the tone, but not enough to, like, say something that indicates that Cora is sexually desiring Starbuck.
It's
which
the
is presumably
same as,
the program.
It's the same as like the Bing AI, saying that it loved the journalist or whatever that was talking to it. It's like it's just mirroring back what you were expecting to see. It doesn't actually mean anything.
No.
That's the smartest thing I think you could say about this episode. Is this, this is ripped from the headlines. We've got
50, 40 something years after the fact.
This is probably what being flirted with by an AI might feel like. Do I need to land or do I need to go through a bouncer? What the fuck does that mean? A bouncer? Is it the nightclub in your metaphor? I guess. It does kind of suck that I guess Korra can't eject intruders from the ship.
Yeah, you think the AI would be able to just not let...
Yeah, as opposed to just saying, "Who are you? Identify," while continuing to carry out this person's orders. Yeah, it feels like there should have been some more, some perhaps deeper integration between the Korra and the rest of the ship, so that she could maybe stop it from being stolen by some schmuck on a prison planet.
I mean, good God, even the vegetables in the Muppet Christmas Carol could object to being stolen.
That's true.
My hero was the head waiter, sommelier, whatever, who basically was like, I know your happiness is in my hands right now, and I am going to just run with that, because you deserve all the rooking I can rook. So...
I agree. I think my two favorite actors in this are Adulteress 58 and that actor, the maitre d'. They know what kind of television show they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I liked he characterized Starbucks flirting as very pre-war.
Yeah, that's right.
Which, if we compare it to the remake Battlestar, they obviously took the opposite track. They're like, okay, everybody, we're just gonna have lots of sex right now.
Everybody's casually bisexual, and we think that's nice.
Yay!
I got to reference that earlier today. Someone mentioned
awesome.
Banger, and I sent her the Banger Boogie that's on the YouTube.
Oh, good times.
I was actually totally shocked that they were like, we have a luxury hotel in space during the war. I was like, what the fuck? They've got the Hilton in space. I was like, what?
Yeah, the only indication that things are not ideal is that they're eating mallow and vaguely defined protein.
What is mallow? Or squishy?
Marshies?
Marshies. That's right. That's right.
Which I feel like I remember hearing that from a Homestar Runner cartoon.
Yeah, Marshy was the marshmallow.
The mascot for Fluffy Puffs, was it?
Yeah, that Homestar was terrified of, and rightly so.
Fluffy Puff sounds like definitely a name for kitty balls.
Yum. This is, of course, the origination of several Battlestar words. Frack is used in this episode.
Yeah, I was not.
Of course, that means
that.
fuck. Yep. But there's more. Feldercarb is used. Feldercarb means shit.
Oh.
Ronald D. Moore flat out banned that use in the reboot.
Good, because that's a dumb word.
Chris and I at the same time went gefilte fish, which.
Huh. Again, yeah, it does sound like old timey swearing.
Yeah, it's like on vaudeville or somebody, a guy would get kicked in the crotch and be like, "Oh, right in the Felga cob."
That's the thing,
yes,
frack sounds enough like what it's supposed to be that in context you get it.
Yes.
That other word, which I've already forgotten again, I did not even I was like, what is? Again, I thought gefilte fish, and was never clear on what it was supposed to have been.
So what is it? What is it? Gefilbefarb?
Feldercarb.
Feldercarb?
Sounds like a medically disgraced crash diet that you would take and then abandon.
I was going to say, it sounds like an artificial ingredient that's banned in the EU.
It sounds like it has been found by the state of California to cause cancer or birth defects.
Like everything else.
I'm gonna Feldercarb until she muffins.
Another swear word is pogies, which also means shit. There are two words for shit.
Pogies, again, sounds like, again, I got kicked in the pogies.
Yeah.
That's definitely a testicle word. Yeah.
And I don't know how much I can say about Battlestar being Mormon or having, telling a lot of Mormon stories or tales in it, but there is nothing more religious than if you make up your own swear words so you can swear without God getting mad at you. Everyone I know who's done that has been super, super religious.
I'm sad that you didn't say this earlier because I almost made a soaking joke and I don't remember what it was about exactly, but it was a while ago and now I feel I've missed my chance.
There's still time.
I'll hold on to it for later.
How did it compare with the reboot series for you?
Oh, this is obviously way better.
Yeah. Well, we know that. Yeah.
I mean,
You know,
that's why people are still talking about it today. It's still very relevant.
It's fascinating aesthetically. I love it, because in the intro, I thought it was Donald Pleasance, but it's actually oh, blast! I looked him up last night. British character actor from the Avengers. John Steed, there.
Oh,
He's the narrator.
Right, bless you, but I knew that wasn't right.
In space.
That would have been great.
But I loved that, they mentioned, like, oh, they may have been the forebears of the Egyptians, and to really drive that home, they have those, like, stupid flight helmets.
Oh my god.
That make them look vaguely like sphinxes.
See, that's the thing. If it weren't for this show, you would not have known that the design for the pyramids actually came from a mediocre television show in the 70s.
Yeah.
You would not have
It was
known
based
that.
on the shape of the raptors, and then obviously the Sphinx, from the helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's nobody more wise than a Viper pilot.
No, not
Or
at
a
all.
warrior, as they are called in the 70s show.
But yeah, and they got those
Warrior.
weird quilted uniforms and the
Oh yeah, it
The
looked like they were made out of
strange-
sleeping bags.
the almost like the weird ceremonial looking, like, and you see them on real ceremonial uniforms to this day, but the strangely shaped thing that Starbuck had dangling from his collar with his, as Caitlin put it, hobbit
the-
cloak.
Oh
Dickie or whatever.
Yeah, that thing.
I love that he dressed for his date like he was going to enjoy second breakfast at the Shire. Like, what the fuck are you wearing, Starbuck?
He's wearing what gets him the ladies.
But
Clearly.
But there were moments where I was like, well, that's just a piece of 70s tech. But then I thought, well, the reboot mixed futuristic and daily, day-to-day, mundane stuff, so I guess that carried forward.
Didn't you? This isn't about the Casio watch, is it?
No.
At one point, Chris thought that he spotted Starbuck wearing, or was it Apollo? It was Starbuck?
Starbuck. It was during
Wearing
the
a
date.
Casio calculator watch. We never got another good look at
Really?
it, though.
Yeah,
Oh, I gotta
at
check
one
that.
point during his date sequence, you see his watch, and I swear I saw buttons.
That's how you can tell the future.
When he ran out of all those coins, do you think he pulled a John Candy and was like, would you take 12 space bucks and a Casio?
I was just trying to figure out sort of the system of exchange there. Like, there's little gold tokens or whatever. Like, one
He's
of
going
them...
to be able to play so much skee-ball. Space skee-ball.
Skee-ball or Dabo.
Yeah, that does remind me, though. Yes, I did think of Latinum as well.
Oh, yeah.
The weird, like, the money's called cubits. They used hectare
They
as
really did.
as a distance in space. I was just like, isn't that a farming thing? And apparently it's like
Star
a
Wars
metric.
is parsec. Why can't they use hectare?
They didn't earn what Star Wars earned.
It's
They
so-
stole what Star Wars earned. According to... That's one thing I was going to ask. If you were Fox, would you have done what they did and sued for plagiarism from Star Wars?
Here's the thing. If I was Fox, yes, because I'm an evil multinational that just wants money. But
Yeah.
me, no. Like, the history of cinema and television is everyone ripping everyone else off to just the right level.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this doesn't cross a line.
I feel like so much of it comes from one place that sometimes I start to wonder. There's a character, there's a woman on the bridge whose name I forget, but her haircut looks like somebody tried to start one of the Leia buns and then got bored.
Actually, what I thought, it looks like Leia's hair in Empire, but of course Empire came
Yes.
after this.
So
if
actually, they
anything-
should have
Stealing
sued
from her,
Fox.
actually, huh?
Yeah.
That's right.
But yes, my first thought was definitely, they wanted to have their own space hair.
Can I answer your question, Carl, with another question?
Yes.
Did Fox sue Buck Rogers for, like, being poor man's Han Solo? Because if yes, then yes, I would also sue. And if no, then I don't know because I don't see their through line.
That's exactly right. And Universal made their point by countersuing that Star Wars had been stolen from Silent Running, the sci-fi show about the guy who is alone with his plants.
And like Lucas himself never made any hash about where all of his inspirations came from.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, all right, this looks more like Star Wars than Star Wars looked like other... Like, Star Wars borrowed shots and stuff very heavily, but individual aesthetics maybe were more unique, but no one is going to confuse these two things. Really.
Well, if you look at those Vipers, and then you look at the X-Wing fighter...
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, there is some similarity there, but then again, I am also like a weird little sci-fi ship aesthetics pedant, so...
Right.
He really is.
I'm a little more obsessive and would go like, well, yeah, sure, there's similarities, but you're not going to... I realize most people are going to kind of glance and go, those look a lot alike. Whereas I'm going to go,
Yeah.
well, actually, if I may.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's all sort of like, it vaguely looks like a plane.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that's,
But like that's what like the spaceships look like in Star Fox. Did they also sue Star Fox? Like I just feel like that's just what little space planes look like.
I think Fox was mad that they had signed away so much of the Star Wars merchandising rights to George,
Yes.
not knowing what it was going to look like, and were trying desperately to get any money they could.
Yeah.
'Cause-
And that ultimately is what happened. I mean, these lawsuits went on and then were eventually settled. Corporations suing each other all the time.
It's
it
dumb.
happens. It is a little more alarming in Glenn A. Larson's case because he had a history of this, most notably later on when he did an action show where he took a script from the Rockford Files and took some scenes and he crossed out the Rockford Files characters' names and put in his characters' names and put his name on it and shot them as if they were his own.
Oh my god, really?
Yes, he was. The WGA took his name off the credit for that and gave it to the Rockford Files writer Stephen J. Cantell.
Holy shit.
So he's an amoral bastard. Proving plagiarism can be hard. And this is an open and shut case.
Yeah.
He still had the copy in his room where he had scratched out the other name. Like, whoops!
This is
and I
just
guess-
Should have destroyed the evidence, my dude.
this is just Nixon's enemies list. You crossed out his name and put yours. Yeah, right, you're going on the list.
More from Glenn A. Larson. He began his career as a member of like a pop folk comedy boy band.
I saw
in the
that.
60s.
What?
And he wrote a parody song called Letter to the Beatles, in which he plays the character of a young man who's worried that his girlfriend's going to fall in love with the Beatles instead of him. And it got popular until he was sued for stealing pieces of I Want to Hold Your Hand.
I was just gonna say,
and then
who
it
did he
collapsed,
rob for
but-
that? Great.
Oh, wait a minute,
Good.
though, but,
The Beatles.
but that's
Good.
parody loss, surely.
I think it would work today. I don't know.
Like,
What do you
that's-
think, Julia?
Yeah, I think it was less cut and dry, or maybe more cut and dry, whichever way it's going, in the 60s and 70s, because that stuff hadn't really been litigated yet. I mean, it wasn't until this is where, sorry, I'm not trying to go to like Professor Mo, but it wasn't until the 80s or 90s.
Please, profess on.
La Soul comes out, and then that's when you get the music industry and general kind of entertainment industry has to be like, oh shit, we actually need to figure out how we're going to litigate this stuff because
Right. That's
it's
true.
gonna keep happening.
They hadn't even had that court case that says you can own videotapes yet, have they? I think it was probably a case of the Beatles have better lawyers.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. If he was like a folk singing goofball, he couldn't, have any hope, even if the law was behind him, like fully, probably, of defeating the Beatles and their multi-gajillion, dollar.
Honestly, the Beatles suing him was
attorneys.
probably did more for his career than his actual career did.
Well, at the very least, it allowed him to endure plagiarism lawsuits, which would become an important part of his life.
It's
He's gonna
interesting.
practice for the rest of his career.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's probably something that, because of the retrospect of everything else he did, it looks worse than it is. Now, again, like, in isolation, it's just like, no, that should be covered by parody law. But I guess, like you said, it hadn't...
I mean, it's sampling. It's just sampling.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Like, it had... Interestingly, this had been covered in print media already because DC Comics sued Mad Magazine before they owned them for
That's right.
a parody they did of either Batman or Superman, I forget which one, and ultimately Mad won. So then when they did the other character, they kept having signs in the background saying this is a parody.
Yeah.
Just as a fuck you to DC.
That's fucking
Good old
great.
Mad.
Yeah. And now, but again, ironically, years later, thanks to conglomeration and this and that, they're both owned by the same people, and I don't think Mad exists anymore.
Sadly. We should move on to Knight Rider. Do you have any last whacks of the bat for Battlestar Galactica?
Needed less Starbuck and more science fiction.
I will say, to say something nice, I liked Lorne Greene, of course, and I also like Terry Carter as Colonel Ty. They have both good voices.
Yeah.
Terry Carter was a newscaster for WBZ Boston.
No kidding.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you can tell, like, I would listen to them talk to each other, like just a YouTube channel of that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Personally.
Well, let's pour out some Ambrosia and move on.
Ambrosia.
Oh, I was so angry.
It's only
about the
one
word
yarn old, but
Ambrosia.
it's good enough.
Yes. Yeah, here again, like, why would you... It is such a small change. Why would you even think to do it?
I kind of just hope that, like, fucking Starbuck didn't know how to pronounce it, and so everybody else had to pronounce it like Nimrods for the rest of the show.
That tracks.
Like,
That tracks.
oh god, I hated it so much. I was
She
like,
did.
come on. I wouldn't stop
Yeah.
bitching. I'll stop now, though.
Also,
You-
how
you
good is
can-
it really that good after like 1,000 years?
No, apparently that's the best Ambrosia.
Like even wine like will eventually
Turn to vinegar.
Yeah.
No, come on. If you found a 600-year-old Budweiser, you don't think that would be great? Yeah, I know. Probably better than it was originally, though. More flavor.
My girl fell in love with a singing group from England far away. She lost her mind, she lost her heart when they began to play. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. And so my girl wrote a letter to the Beatles saying, you're so fine. You can have my love to keep. Take this heart of mine. Beatles, I'd give you anything, all of my true love. But they wrote a letter back to her saying that ain't enough. You gotta send us 25 cents for an autographed picture, $1 bill for a fan club card, and if you send it right away, you'll get a lock of hair from a St. Bernard.
Knight Rider, Soul Survivor. Michael makes Kits stop by the side of the road so he can save Adrienne Margot, a pretty art dealer whose car has broken down. She gratefully invites Michael to her place for a drink, but it's all a setup so she can steal Kit's body. April and Devin recover Kit's CPU and set him up in a 1980s-style portable television. Kit's ego deflated, he and Michael set off in search of Adrienne and her accomplice, high school nerd boy Randy. Randy tries to learn how to drive the car off an Atari joystick, but it's slow going, and he's beginning to suspect that Adrienne might not have feelings for him as much as he does for her. Michael finally collars them in the middle of an art heist. Adrienne tries to make Randy run Michael down, but that's a bridge too far, and he flips, allowing Michael to get Kit's body back and arrest everybody. That's right, Michael and Kit never doubted Randy at all. What did you think of Soul Survivor?
This is the first episode of Knight Rider I'd ever seen.
Same.
Yes.
Oh.
The first of many, I think, in my case, because I thought it was just
You're
a
hooked.
lot of fun.
It was dumb in a way I am almost completely okay with.
Yeah, I enjoy the show. I'm a big fan of the show. I will absolutely admit that this is a dumb episode. It feels like this came out at a time when people really didn't understand how the hell computers work. And so it was basically like magic. You could just say, oh, the computer is doing X. And people would be like, okay, I guess it does that now.
Right.
While also expecting them to understand the term CPU.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, go on, Julia. That's just...
No, it's true. Like, all this, it's amazing the level of computer familiarity that, has happened in the last 30, 40 years that make a lot of that show seem so quaint. The giant block text on the screen.
Yep.
You can tell it was in the 80s and not the 90s because Randy introduces himself as Randy and not some like cool hacker handle.
Yeah, that would have been really the only major difference, because I feel like even in the 90s there was still like a lot of this no one knows the first thing about computers so we can get away with a lot thing.
See swordfish.
Oh God!
I mean, don't see swordfish, but
I would say this reminded me a lot of like the technology I started, like the one computer we had in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And like everyone had a day where they could go use the computer at lunch and play Oregon Trail.
Oh,
or
those were the
whatever.
best freaking days.
I
I was such a huge computer nerd from, I don't know, day one of me finding out what the hell a computer was.
Did you recognize any of the equipment they used in here, Julia?
I should have actually looked it up. The computer that Randy had at home, where it was like all one piece and the giant 5 1/4 floppy disks on either side.
Yeah.
I know I've seen that before.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head what it is / was, but yeah, seeing the old school stuff, like, where I forget whoever dials into Randy's computer, with the acoustic coupler.
I can't remember now who it was, but I remember seeing the brand name on the giant discs, and it's somebody that's still around, but they make
Yeah, I think it was like 3M or something.
Yeah, that's exactly who it was. And it's just like,
Oh yes, good old 3M. Still around. Just the emotions that we all associate with hard floppy disks or soft floppy disks.
I did love that.
Wonderful
Well, that's the thing, because you tell his kids these days, you tell them a floppy disk, and they picture the 3.5 inch, and they ask, why is it floppy? It's not floppy.
You had to respect your tools back then. You couldn't just drop your disks on the floor.
Couldn't stick them with a magnet to the fridge,
No.
Yeah. When they had a close up on either Hasselhoff or his hand double, fucking up putting the disc in, and they said, fuck it, and kept it in. Actually, no, I think it was a wide shot, so it was Hasselhoff. Like, he started to put it in the wrong way and then had to turn it around, and they're like, just keep it, fuck it. We already had him say he's bad at computers.
Yeah, I was gonna say we start the episode with Kit being like, "Why don't you know more about computers, Michael? Whatever your name is."
Yeah, Michael.
Got it. Got it. One.
His way of learning about computers is playing Pac-Man.
Well, which I take umbrage with because I believe they opened with sounds from Dig Dug.
Really?
I don't know. I could be wrong, but I thought it was.
You're right. You're right.
Definitely was not. I remember thinking like
it wasn't
You're right.
I think though,
I
again,
didn't catch
to a
that.
point you made, Caitlin, Hasselhoff did a better job of looking like he'd actually handled a joystick before than the kid that played Randy.
Oh my god!
He kept trying to like turn the joystick. It goes in 4 directions and there's a button. That's it.
I just feel like anyone in any kind of like physical relationship with him is gonna get hurt. Like, I feel like he hurts himself.
Yes.
I was like, what is happening?
Well,
Sir.
luckily, it seems like that's a highly unlikely situation.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Right. Yeah. He does have these sort of proto-incel qualities that I found kind of disturbing.
Yeah,
given how long ago this episode
that we
was.
didn't realize was a warning sign until far too late.
Though, I mean, also to be fair to the little weirdo, he was also being actively groomed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is like that. I feel like that at the time, that was thought of as way less creepy than now we're watching it. And we're like, oh my god. Oh,
Yeah, no,
and
I
I mean,
remember in the 80s there was, or maybe the 90s. I could remember the teacher's name, but it really doesn't matter. But there was, the court case about some high school teacher who was a woman who was sleeping with one of her male students,
yeah.
and
Oh, Mary Kay
yeah,
Letourneau.
um, yeah, and the general pop culture reaction was like, "Whoa, good for you, dude."
Yeah, that was how they saw it in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think even to this day, I think there's still this kind of like sexist element where a guy does it to a girl and you're like gross, woman does it to a boy and people are still kind of like, there's still that cohort of people who are like high-fiving, whereas the rest of us are going, no.
Well, yeah, but that cohort of people that's high-fiving is like other 14-year-olds who they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, well,
Eh.
I don't know. I guess I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts recently, aside from this one, obviously, that where they talked about that, where they were like, yeah, but if it was my son, I'd high-five him. I'm like, bro, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
And yet, Knight Rider, this is one of the most pure forms of camp I think you can find in the 80s.
That is true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it is definitely like, it's so beautifully campy. And I love camp, so...
And if I could give an example of what Knight Rider does or does not care about, when Randy takes over the computer, the monitor says "computer override."
Yep.
And override is spelled wrong.
Yes,
Chris
computer
mentioned
override
that.
day.
Yep, I forgot. Yeah,
But the more that Adrian becomes evil, the more she drinks wine. Knight Rider cares enough about that. Knight Rider will go the extra mile. She'll drink wine in her house.
Yep.
She'll drink wine in the back of her car. She will stand up and threaten Michael Knight physically with a wine thing in her hand.
She'll drink it in a house with a mouse.
With a mouse? Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, to cut back a little bit before then, one thing I remember noticing when I watched this that I'm totally sure I didn't catch the first time. She invites Mike when Michael pulls over to help her doing the damsel in distress thing. She says, why don't you come back to my house and I'll buy you a drink.
Oh yeah. What?
I don't think it works that way.
Now here again, knowing Glenn A. Larson, probably he stole this from some other TV show where there was buying of a drink, and he just
and it was going back to a bar.
He forgot about the continuity
thing. Forgot
thing.
to change that detail.
Whoops.
It's dream logic. I think Knight Rider's a lot like Twin Peaks too, because it's you can't really twist a joystick like that, but sometimes it feels like you can.
He was putting his elbow in it. Like you could see it was really.
How many of those do they think he broke before they had to be like,
many.
dude, you gotta take it easy on the Atari?
We have no proof they were working properly beforehand. I had that the 2600 with those joysticks, and there was a space shuttle game that I got one year for one holiday or another, and it was very cool, but it was one of those ones you absolutely had to read the manual. Like, you had no clue of doing anything successfully if you didn't read the manual, because it's like, okay, you have to shift up at this point, and then, hold the button and go down again when you hit like 30,000 feet or whatever it was. And it was impressive how much you could do with that one joystick, but it was definitely, at no point did it involve twisting it.
Yeah, no.
Julia, I feel like you and I probably were of the age where like all you have to do is mention the space shuttle, and we're like, yes, awesome. Oh, yeah. Caitlin, Chris, you might be a little younger for that. I don't know.
I was, so I don't know if I'm a huge nerd, so I was way into that stuff anyway. So, I mean, I still had that, but again, that might be, more a result of just who I am, as opposed to...
I came up after the tragedy, so I don't know.
So did I, technically.
What grade were you in when Challenger happened? I was in second grade.
Oh, God. I was... me too.
So, I remember that very clearly.
I was 2, so I don't remember it, but apparently my parents remember coming home and turning on the news, and it was in the middle of the story, so all they saw was, like, a smoke trail and an explosion. And, these were, like, the weird waning but still kind of heating up, thanks Reagan, days of the Cold War. So they, for a minute, legit thought World War III had started.
Of
Oh my
course.
god, your poor
because
parents.
all they saw was a smoke trail and what seemed like an exploding rocket.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
the story, it took a minute for the narration to explain it was the Challenger.
Yeah.
How awful.
That was so sad. I remember the TV movie about Krista McAuliffe, who would have been the first teacher in space.
Yeah.
I just remember hearing, like, for the next, I don't know, however many months, just hearing politicians go on and on about O-rings.
O-rings, yes, God. I never trust an O-ring again. I don't even know what they are.
All I know is you can blow one out and drop a lung, according to...
Tom Arnold.
Yeah. Sorry, Austin
Tom
Powers.
noted,
We were having this
noted
beautiful moment.
aeronautical engineer.
Yes, yeah, of course. You know who has a lot of beautiful moments is David Hasselhoff.
It's all that
He's
eyeliner, Carl.
What kind of hero is he, David Hasselhoff?
Well, you know, he's thoughtful. He's not shallow. He sees what's beneath the surface, and I really believe that he loves Kit for who he is, and not what he looks like on the outside.
You know,
They are boyfriends, right?
More or less.
Pretty much.
I mean, again,
it's all subtext, but, you know.
this is the only one I've seen, but I mean, he's like not a superhero, I guess, for lack of better. Like, he fucks up. He's very human.
The whole series
Yeah.
starts with Michael Long fucking up his big case as a cop to nail some, I don't know, somebody's gonna steal something from a casino, if I remember correctly.
Huh.
And he gets shot and left for dead.
Oh my
It's
god.
how the series opens.
What you're saying is RoboCop ripped off Knight Rider, but
you
instead
go.
of the cop being resurrected and given a cool robot car, they just said, fuck it, put them together.
Yeah.
And then Knight Rider sued.
Glenn A. Larson was like, finally, it's Glenn's turn! Ha ha ha!
Since we've gone into this territory, Larson has creator credit, but by all accounts, the person who came up with the idea of a cool talking car was Brandon Tartikoff, who was an NBC executive who was considered cool for some reason. He was he was like an executive, but he still wore jeans. I don't really get the appeal, but he's in a bunch of like late '80s sitcoms, and he came up with this idea, and they didn't know who to give it to. But luckily for them, Glenn A. Larson's ambiguously worded contract hinted that they could force him to produce Knight Rider, and they did.
What?
Wow.
And Glenn A. Larson got the creator credit without even filing a suit or being sued himself. So I think this is a wonderful experience for him.
That must be nice. Yeah, you know, hey, we're gonna slap your name on this thing, and you're gonna get credit and money for it. And
Holy shit.
What's holy shit?
So I just looked up Tartikoff?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I've definitely heard the name.
He was
Yeah.
behind in some capacity. This is just from his intro on Wikipedia, so I don't know what his involvement was in all of these, but in some way, shape, or form, he was attached to Hill Street Blues, L.A. Law,
Yes.
Law and Order, Alf, Family Ties, The Cosby Show, Cheers, Seinfeld, The Golden Girls, Wings, Miami Vice, Knight Rider, The A-Team, Saved by the Bell, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, St. Elsewhere, and Night Court.
he was
He had the golden touch,
He was
yeah.
NBC exec for some time in the 80s. Yeah.
He was attached to Golden Girls. Jesus.
That's probably why I've seen
Yeah,
the
I mean,
name.
I think
That
all of
was
those are
probably
NBC
it.
shows.
Good God, the man made most of the 80s and early 90s. He worked on Punky Fuck Me Brewster.
Oh, I love Punky Brewster.
Wait a minute. He was also involved in the creation of Deep Space Nine somehow?
I should have remembered that. Yes, he allegedly was the one who said, "Let's put it on a space station instead of a starship."
Sure.
He's the one who allegedly
I'm sure a lot of people make that claim.
knocked
but-
out the
Yeah,
original
yeah.
creator and
What if it's
stole
car?
their papers.
Yeah, he was the one who allegedly stole everything from Michael Straczynski.
Well, you know, he's had very few of his own good ideas, so that tracks. Oh, wait.
This
That's
is
how you become a successful executive.
Yeah. This is what I kind of love about this whole universe of television is like these shows are all beloved and none of them are like particularly creative, but all of them has one thing. You know, Knight Rider has the cool talking car, and a lot of these also have one, like, for all the cheesiness, they have one unquestionably good actor. In this case, William Daniels. How does William Daniels store up compared to Korra from Battlestar Galactica?
Not
Oh,
nearly
God.
enough flirting.
Yeah.
He is just he's better written, so I mean, the actor has more to work with. Like, I've seen nothing else Cora's voice actor was in. For all I know, she's a great actor, but she was given shit to work with.
She's also uncredited on Battlestar.
Okay.
That's crappy.
Which is unfair. The maitre d' was also uncredited.
Oh. And I will add that although I am probably of roughly the right age group, I did not grow up on Boy Meets World, so I don't have any Mr. Feeney nostalgia.
Right, that was a major thing for him. Certainly.
So, like, this is strictly based on him as Kit.
My favorite thing about their dynamic, and I say this with all the love possible, Hasselhoff, if he tries really hard, can only be as charismatic as William Daniels' voice. And that's a wonderful thing.
I appreciate the relationship. I was definitely expecting their relationship to be more contentious than it is. I was like, oh, they're actually buddies. I like that.
Yeah, it starts out more contentious in the first couple episodes, but they kind of get into a rhythm pretty quickly.
Yeah, like there's a friendly needling from both ends, but it's you know.
Yeah.
The one thing I noted as somebody who's watched a lot of this show, this was still using like the buttons and layout from largely the first season, which has like the LEDs on the outside and everything else. Mm-hmm. And later in, I want to say season 3 or 4, Kit gets completely bashed to hell and has to be rebuilt from scratch and everything else. And there's a point in Soul Survivor where Michael is driving the convertible with, Kit the TD in the passenger seat, not wearing a seatbelt, by the way.
Caitlin said that.
And
what did I say?
And Kit talks about, not understanding the whole point of like the wind in your hair and the sun beating down in your face or whatever. But then, ends up with a full-on convertible mode later in the show. And
really?
Thinks it's cool.
Interesting.
So the character growth over the course of the series, is strong as far as Kit's opinions on convertibles.
When he was converted, did they make him into the Studebaker? Because that was beautiful.
All right. So the first time during the series, when they bashed him up, they built him from scratch. But in Knight Rider 2000, when he's all disassembled, they actually put him in a '57 Chevy for a good chunk of the film. Before eventually putting him in the Dodge Viper that he sort of ends the show in, and unfortunately they never picked that up for a series.
Right. This is the Pontiac Trans Am, right?
The black car is a Pontiac Trans Am, or a black T-top, as for some reason it is constantly referred to in the show. I don't know why they don't actually just use the brand name.
They may have not had the rights.
I did wonder, like, why did America eat this show up? But I really can't argue, because it's basically pure 80s.
It's just very fun.
It's very fun from the moment.
Hasselhoff is good to look at. The car is a great character. The car does cool shit.
Does cool shit.
I mean, certainly for a nerdy kid, and I'm very clearly speaking for myself here. It was cool as hell, and I would watch it with my parents like every week when I was growing up.
This is the thing. There were not many things that were both geeky and cool at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And this sort of hit the spot in a way that we would eventually see a lot more of. I mean, I remember being a kid, and my parents took me to the Fargo State Fair where the Knight Rider car was touring.
Oh, fun.
And I got to sit in the Knight Rider car for 5 minutes.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's really cool.
I can tell you that kit panel is only like 2 inches square. It's completely underwhelming.
You reminded me, Julia, by saying that apparently Kit eventually became a Dodge Viper, that there was a show that I did watch as a kid, which in retrospect maybe was cribbing pretty heavily from this, called Viper.
Yes.
About a guy
I remember that now.
Yeah, a guy who had like a super...
It morphed or something?
It like turned from a regular Viper to a silver Viper, and I think its hood changed, and it had all these like built-in gadgets and shit, but it didn't have an AI.
Yeah.
I think, maybe. It also took itself way too serious. I found some clips of it online a few years ago, and I suddenly remembered it then, and then forgot it again. And it definitely took itself 90s gritty seriously, which I think is why it failed. And rightly so, whereas this knew what it was.
Yeah, and took joy in what it was.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that in terms of Michael's deductive process. Michael the detective. You might wonder, like, how does he find the name of Adrian to follow up on her? And apparently what happens is he just describes her really well.
Yeah.
Well, no, I thought he went to the hotel and like showed this picture with $100 with a hundo behind it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But finding her picture in the first place, I looked it up based on an online inflation calculator. That was a roughly $300 bribe he dropped on that guy in today's money.
I feel like that bribe was too much. What do you think?
I mean, it was for it's basically the hotel where all the crazy rich people show up to do their crazy rich people things and not get found out for it. So I feel like the people who work there get paid pretty well to keep their mouths shut.
Yeah, if anything, it wasn't enough.
That's a good point, actually, because I guess I was feeling like Michael's persuasive abilities should be able... I felt like he should have been able to do, like, I'll do your laundry for a month if you tell me.
Would you trust that man to do your laundry?
I would not.
Like, nothing against him, but it's just, this is a guy in the 80s who was brought up in the era where women do laundry, not men.
Right.
And because he's a
men don't do
bachelor,
laundry unless the washer eventually explodes in soap bubbles everywhere.
yeah, like
That's if I've learned nothing from all the 80s sitcoms that I watched growing up.
Yeah.
Michael now only knows how to do his laundry because Kit taught him.
That's definitely true.
And even then, like, to be reminded every time to separate darks and lights.
Do I use cold or hot?
Just wash everything cold. It's fine.
He just flat out installs Kit in his laundry machines.
Yeah, that was the other option, before they found the portable TV.
Did anyone have a portable TV? That feels more trouble than it's worth.
I also, I don't think it was just a portable TV, because I'm pretty sure there was a cassette deck in the top of it, too.
It sure was.
So it was like a boombox / portable TV.
I thought it was a VCR.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Right, this is 1982. They still had those top-loading VCRs.
Maybe it was a Betamax.
Actually,
it could have been.
That would make me so happy if that was Beta.
It very likely could have been, given the size of the slot, now that I'm thinking about it.
So, when he gives it to Randy at the end, you can see the bottom of it, and there's a battery compartment there. And it's like, oh my god, that thing must have taken 80 D cells, and it probably ran 30 minutes off of them. Like, if you couldn't plug that into the wall, it was going to be dead instantly, thus rendering its portableness kind of pointless.
Yeah, it
which
seemed
the
like a
size was
thing.
already doing.
Yeah, exactly,
huge.
Carl. It was probably a very expensive piece of kit. Like, it was like, look what I have, less than look at how useful it is.
Like, look at my Zach Morris phone of portable TVs. Now, of course, it works because
Jim Neighbors?
when Michael Knight runs out of gas and Jim Neighbors shows up.
I was like, is that Jim fucking Neighbors? What is going on? It was the best cameo.
Yeah, there is. I remember noticing when I was watching these growing up, and then we briefly had this, for the one episode that we put out of our hit podcast, Kitsplaining.
Oh, I love that.
That's explaining.
Well, the whole idea was I was somebody who'd seen a bunch of the show, and Vicky hadn't seen any, so. Anyway, but there was always a bit in a lot of episodes that was essentially just for comic relief, and we ended up calling it the C plot because it did not by any means rise to the level of a B plot.
It's basically a sketch, yeah.
Yeah, kinda. Like I think it was the first or second episode, like there were just a couple of really dumb criminals who were bumbling around, kept trying to steal Kit and getting thwarted time and time again. Speaking of which, how the hell did Randy get past all of that stuff? Like, just
his joystick, obviously.
Yeah, his joystick and typing a lot.
Yeah, he's clearly really good at manual over-e-days.
I keep meaning to try my eggs that way, but I just go back to scrambled.
Yeah, it was a lot harder to steal Kit than it was to steal Cora, which I appreciated.
Yeah, Kit actually provided more than trivial resistance.
Yeah.
Like, hey, who are you?
And yet here again, he's doing a cyber attack on some very, very sophisticated systems, signified by Kit's hood being popped open.
Yep.
And door.
Yep.
And door, yes.
I appreciate that he's like, fine, you can open my hood, but that's it.
Yeah.
Buy him dinner first. Shit.
And just, and Kit knows that that's not going to be the end of it. It's just,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this
he's doing
is...
it for himself as much as anything else. Let's be honest.
Yeah. One thing I was interested in, I do like that the security leak ends up being just a guy on the board of the Foundation for Law and Government who squealed. And he's like, how did she find out? And he goes, well, maybe she went through my files, or maybe it was pillow talk. Like, I'm pretty sure it was pillow talk. It's like a little kid, like, slowly fessing up to something everyone knows they did.
Yeah.
Maybe a bird knocked over the vase.
I do kind of love that Michael had to bribe the guy at the hotel to find out it was somebody he's attached to professionally that fucked all this up.
Yeah, that is kind of good.
I wonder if he then was like, well, you know what, in that case...
I need a raise.
And then he put in, like, an expense report for the bribe.
I mean, all of his accounts were set up by the Knight Foundation anyway. I mean, the whole idea of the Foundation for Law and Government being this, like, extra governmental organization that somehow enforces the law.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that raises significant questions that never really get answered.
Well, that's the thing. In the 80s, it was just, funny, haha times. Now in a world where Blackwater exists, or whatever they've changed their name to because of PR. Huh?
Z, but it's spelled XE for some reason. That's the last I heard.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. No, but yes, in retrospect, again, it's one of those things that's like, oh, this is uncomfortable now instead of fun.
Yeah, but look, the car jumps.
Off of nothing.
Yeah, off of a ramp totally isn't just, hidden in there.
Yeah, no.
If you actually look closely. I did appreciate that both Michael and Kit were like, oh, so that's what it looks like to get turbo boosted over.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
This is what we've been doing to all those people.
We need to check ourselves,
I like that he has both pursuit mode and turbo boost.
Yeah.
It's like, we have so many fast modes.
Well, later there's super pursuit mode.
Nice.
I was going to ask you about super pursuit mode, Julia, because I thought it was in this episode. It is not.
No, super pursuit mode comes later. It's
what is the nature of super pursuit mode?
Refit that gives him the convertible option, if I remember correctly.
I see.
But yeah, it's kind of actually, Chris, you mentioned Viper in the car transforming. Kit kind of transforms. I mean, it's not morphing because that didn't exist, but little fins pop out and you get suddenly a giant spoiler.
Oh wow!
Ooh.
And,
right.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And then it's very obvious that they're speeding up the film as he drives away.
Yes,
like the Munsters.
And then the other thing they added to Super Pursuit Mode was the emergency braking system, where these giant fans flip out of the side and they're like, obviously black on the outside, but like bright safety orange on the inside. And that somehow like brings Kit from like 300 miles an hour to stopped in a couple seconds without turning Michael into, jelly.
Oh, that's good. That's hard science. I like that.
Yeah.
Guys, this is important.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
I was looking up Kit refit to try to find a picture of the second Kit car, but I didn't find that yet. But apparently, due out this April is a licensed replica of Michael Knight's Kit communicator watch.
Oh, damn.
Interesting. It is the time. Yeah, people our age would totally buy that.
I was gonna say although now smartwatches are like do all that stuff and more.
Yeah,
But
no,
they
this
don't
one
look
looks to
like
just be a
his.
digital watch with a fake speaker on it. Hopefully you push a button and like Hasselhoff's voice comes out or something.
Keep your Spanish peeled.
Now Adrian steals Kit but it is ultimately just to rob some art, which seems like a misfire to me. I feel like I feel like art theft is tremendously easy compared to stealing kit.
Yeah,
You said the same thing. I
yeah,
feel like
I was like, this is needlessly elaborate for this. Especially when the art isn't even in an armored car, but a bus that's had some cardboard put on it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like corrugated.
That's true. That is the stronger cardboard.
That is true. You would need a laser pack for that.
Yeah. And I must, again, I say that with love. I enjoyed that it was so obviously a modified bus. That brings me so much happiness.
You know what else I love? Like, Michael finds Kit's CPU. He could have had that happen any different way. Like, and the way they decided to have him do it was, wait a second, I feel a presence.
Yeah.
I feel
Kit. This red flashing light in the corner.
Well, you understand. Going back to Glenn A. Larson
Uh-huh.
and Star Wars knockoffs, we must remember that one of David's early seminal works, he and I are on a first-name basis, was a Star Wars knockoff from Italy called Star Crash.
Yes.
Where he was a dramatic space prince with a laser sword, so maybe he's got a bit of the Force in him still.
That makes sense.
I'm sure it's called something else for.
He would have the Force.
Dude just looks like he's crawling with midichlorians.
Yeah.
I think they still called them STDs in the 80s.
Midichlorians are the most harmless things he is loaded with, no doubt.
I know we mentioned it very briefly earlier, but like the fact that his eyeliner is so obvious but no one else's it makes it feel like that is a choice Michael makes in universe, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, he's a little emo driving around the black car.
Well, Margot's was
Leather
really
jacket.
heavy.
Well, that was just the look for women back then, I think, though.
We're winding down, but all I want to do is ask Julia more questions about Knight Rider. But perhaps another time.
We should do a crossover episode with Kit's planning.
Anytime. I think you got some guests here if you want to.
Oh my god, absolutely. I am going to unironically watch so much of this show. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, no, this is up there with Buck Rogers as far as we're concerned for Glenn Larson Productions.
Definitely.
What do we? I was thinking about what kind of mediocre shows these are. Knight Rider, not really mediocre.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean?
Don't you dare say that again.
But guilty pleasures, perhaps. And I feel like one thing I can say about Knight Rider is one time I had to watch my dad's sick cat, and I watched like a ton of episodes of Knight Rider. So it's a really good sick cat watching show.
That gives it 4 out of 5 Price is Rights.
Yes.
Highly recommended.
Unfortunately, it was taken off Netflix, so you can't really do that unless you put some money in. But it's worth it.
Or get a VPN. I bet some country has it.
I could probably buy the whole series on Amazon for $32.
I bought the whole thing on disc.
You have it on DVD, don't you?
I have it on Blu-ray.
Blu-ray, nice.
I actually,
fancy.
I did check last night. It is on Amazon for like $30 right now, but it is on extreme back order and
Whatever.
wouldn't be here for like 2 months.
I'm ready. It's worth it. I'll pay it. I'll wait.
Nice.
David's worth waiting for.
There is a lot of positive energy in Knight Rider, and we could use that.
Yeah.
We could use that. Our shows today have been The Long Patrol, Battlestar Galactica, and Soul Survivor, Knight Rider. On the theme of stealing talking vehicles, who wins? Battlestar or Knight Rider?
Knight Rider.
Yeah, I think I have to. I mean, I was leaning Knight Rider just by default, but yeah, I didn't really care that much about getting Korra back, but I definitely cared about Kit.
Yeah.
I would have to agree. Definitely Knight Rider. And especially because at least after they stole Kit, they had like a plan for what they were going to do with it, whereas with Battlestar, it just kind of felt like, I'm just going to drive this home and show my wife.
Yeah, well, or I'm going to hollow it out and throw a bunch more Ambrosia in it so I can use this instead of my shit wagon that I'm.
Shit
I mean,
wagon.
that's the problem. There was no room in it for Ambrosia. It had already had all of its space filled with engines, like The Fool.
Yeah.
You know what? I have one more question about this episode of Knight Rider.
Woo!
It's
like an encore.
Adrian lures Michael in, and Michael takes a drink, but he is not knocked out by the drink.
Yeah, no, it's the music.
He is knocked out by the music that she plays off for reel-to-reel.
Which, again...
She's like, here's some garbage I found in Europe.
Easier to just drug... yeah,
yes.
Easier to just drug the drink. This woman's whole MO is, what's the most complicated way I can do something? She's like a Romulan.
I was gonna say, she's a fucking Romulan. Dear God.
Because, I mean, talk about questions it asks but doesn't answer. I mean, is there a whole genre of music that can knock you out?
Well, there's that song from that group in the 90s there.
What?
You know, Mama's Gonna Knock You Out or whatever.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Also, group, that was LL Cool J.
Oh, was that an LL Cool J song?
I always forget that LL Cool J, like, had music, because I think of him mostly as a fairly mediocre actor.
Lip sync battle?
Oh, no, I didn't know about that. I don't know.
Thank you for appearing on Knighttlestar.
He is both a host and producer. He apparently hosts with Chrissy Teigen.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, who's Chrissy Teigen? Is that
She's married to John Legend.
Married to John Legend, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Tweets shit.
Yeah, I know she's a big tweeter.
I'm interested in late life jobs from like former rappers. It's always something like not edgy.
I mean, Snoop Dogg's rehabilitation over the last 15, 20 years is ridiculous.
Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart, like, their, like, dinner party show was the fucking best thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I have never laughed so hard.
There is a delightfully terrible movie called Edison Force with LL Cool J.
Oh, it's so good.
Which can't decide if it's Training Day or a movie about a journalist changing the world with his words. It's a little awkward now because Kevin Spacey's in it, but they you know, LL's in it, and TV's Dylan McDermott is trying to play a dirty cop, and he just doesn't have the skill for it.
Justin Timberlake is writing
journalist.
for a Jewish monthly newsletter
Weekly.
where the editor is like Morgan Freeman.
Yep.
And actually, isn't Carrie Elwes in it?
He
no, it's
is.
not. And also, like the dad from fucking
From Home Alone, Carrie Elwes. It's a great movie in that it's so bad it's hilarious.
And the cast is full of fabulous stars.
But that's neither here nor there. Sorry.
Poor Carl. Carl's trying really hard.
Yeah, this could go on forever, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you for appearing on Knighttlestar Rideactica. Do you have anything to plug?
Caitlin and I are on A Star to Steer Her By, where we talk about Star Trek. We are nearly done with Voyager now. We're in season 6.
Voyager.
Which means we're staring down the barrel of Faith of the Heart.
Ugh.
Stay strong.
Julia.
I have no active other podcasts, but I do still perform with Red Shirts, the universe's only all-women Star Trek Next Generation themed musical improv troupe. You can find us on Facebook at Red Shirts Musical Improv, and if you just search for Red Shirts Musical Improv on various places, you will find us.
Woo.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us.
Tune in next week for Battlestar Galactica's The Gun on Ice Planet Zero Part 1 and Knight Rider's Goliath Part 1 on the theme of stuff that can blow up vehicles that you did not think could be blown up. I'm Carl, and April Fools. Good night. Good day and welcome to Knighttlestar Rideactica. Each week on Night...
Sorry.
Well, we've blown it. 2 seconds in.
That's okay. Get it out. Get it all out.
2 seconds of pretending to be totally straight. That's a new record.
I should have asked what the title was going to be ahead of time.